spiritual. Mr. Adams.
They tell his mama.
Yes, I'm going to tell your mommy. That's right. Pretty good, Mr. Adams. And finally, what threat's associated with Stonewall Jackson? Stonewall Jackson.
The shortstop or the general?
No, the general. The general. Does that let you out?
Yeah, let me
Mr.
out.
Kieran, our sports secretary.
Who touches the hair of yon gray head dies like a dog. March on, he said.
Nice.
Barbara
work,
Freak.
Mr. Kieran. Very good. 3 out of 4. And so far, we have lost exactly nothing, and we have lost no sets whatsoever of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Hey.
So we're not sending out a present to anyone so far. Now we're going to have a present, nevertheless, for everyone listening to this program. An additional minute of information, please, because Mr. Cross is busy eating birthday cake and drinking Canada Dry. So we'll go right on with a question which, again, is off the record, if you don't mind. A Haverstraw, New York headline on a day in October 1907 read, Farley's double clears the bases. Farley's double clears the bases. Name the men who were on the bases. Mr. Farley, I understand you have what is generally considered a pretty good memory. They say that once you have shaken hands with a man, you remember him forever afterward.
Well, that isn't exactly true.
Well, of course not, but...
That's
approximately.
insincere, then.
As a matter of fact, it's over-exaggerated.
You think it's over-exaggerated? Well, I do know you have a very good memory, and I wonder whether you remember that episode in October 1907.
Probably McGraw.
I think I was playing with the Grassy Point baseball team against the Haverstraw.
That's right. And you happen to remember who were on the bases?
Frankly, I don't.
You want me to tell you that story?
I'd be
It'll
glad
make you
to.
feel very good. Well, here's the story. In 1907, in October, there was a game between Haverstraw and Grassy Point, and Grassy Point was up. A man named Sheridan singled. Remember Sheridan?
There were two brothers, Mike and Pat.
Shouldn't be surprised if this is the other one. Oh, you do remember, Mr. Fawley. You've been kidding me all along.
But there were two brothers.
Yeah,
I don't know
all
which
right. A
one.
man named Peterson struck out. Then Kavanaugh singled.
He now works for the
Ward-
post office.
Pardon?
He now works for the post office.
Oh, well, you do know. I knew you'd been joshing me, and at that point, Farley doubled by gosh and saved the game. Remember that now, Mr. Farley?
Yes, I do.
Have you done anything as good as that ever since?
I wouldn't say that I have.
No, it's probably the high point of your career. The next question comes from Fred A. Lum of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. You gentlemen all smoke, I think. I'm going to ask you to quote from 3 poems about tobacco or smoking. Mr. Kieran, first.
A woman is only a woman, but a good cigar is a smoke. Rudyard Kipling.
I've never heard such conviction in your voice before, Mr. Kieran. That's one. Miss Adams, you had your hand up before.
Thou who when fears attack bidst them avaunt and black care at the horseman's back perching unseated. Sweet when the morn is gray, sweet when they've cleared away lunch, and at close of day possibly sweetest. Ode to Tobacco by C.S. Calverley.
Goodness gracious. That's marvelous. Simply wonderful. Mr. Levant.
Give me a man who can smoke a pipe, but not for long.
Mr. Kieran.
Light-winged smoke, Icarian flame, and the rest of it I don't remember, but that's the
Doubt
opening line of Henry David Thoreau's little verse on it.
I don't know that, but I'm positive it's correct. You have another one, Mr. Adams. You can't cap that previous quotation.
Where there's fire, there's smoke.
All right, good enough. One could mention perhaps one or two others. He called for his pipe and he called for his bowl.
He jests at cigars that never...
How about a Cuban general's endorsement of a 5-cent cigar?
What was the endorsement?
Well, they have them in all the advertisements.
I know. I
It's
don't
a
think
feller, a rapper.
I don't think it's yet a line of poetry.
No?
Not yet. It hasn't become a classic. The next question from Walter B. Warren of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Identify the well-known symphonies in which the audience hears these phrases played by the bass viol. And we've got a bass viol that was brought in on the back of Mr. Farley this evening. And we're going to have 3 phrases, different phrases played. You've got to identify the symphonies from which they come. Let's have the first. This sounds like deep scratching to me.
Doesn't sound like a flute so far.
No, I've got that far with you, I think.
Do it
Mr.
again,
Levant.
brother. The rhythm suggests Tchaikovsky, but that's all.
That's good enough. How
I
about
won't
going a
go-
little further?
Well, I really specifically don't know.
You're all right on Tchaikovsky, Mr. Levant.
Well, you can't escape Tchaikovsky the way.
No, well, how about giving us a guess?
Well, yes, there are 3 symphonies they always play. The 4th, 5th, 6th, I'll match you.
No. You must answer. You just give me one.
Wait a
guess.
minute.
Don't number it. Give me the name.
Well, the theme of the Sixth has a bass-like flavor. Yum-bum-ba-dum. Maybe it's a derivative of that, of the Sixth Symphony, but I specifically don't know
What's the name? What's the name of the Sixth Symphony?
It breaks your heart again, the Path of Tea.
Yes, that's right. Took a long time to get it out of you, but that's absolutely right.
But I don't know if that's true.
The Path. Yep. Very good. Let's have the next.
That one I can tell right away.
All right, Mr. Levant, let's have it.
It's the first movement after the introduction of the Brahms C minor symphony, number one.
Well, very good.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
And the third and last, Mr. Kieran, do you have your hand up, Mr. Kieran? Or
Let's
just
see.
your eyebrows?
No,
raised?
That's the most famous bass passage in all symphonic literature. It's in the scherzo of the Fifth Symphony.
Of the Fifth Symphony of?
Beethoven.
Just for me.
Beethoven.
Of Beethoven. 3 out of 3. I don't see how you do it, Mr. Levant. The next question, coming from M. McLaughlin of Philadelphia, is about prize fight. What heavyweight prize fighter won the world championship by a knockout in 6 rounds? By a knockout in 6 rounds. Mr. Levant, be careful. Be careful.
Sharkey and Carnera.
Yeah. Sharkey and Carnera. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Kieran?
At Long Island.
Very good. And in 8 rounds. In 8 rounds. What heavyweight prize fighter won the championship by knockout in 8 rounds?
We had that one before,
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's
Not with me. That's been some other master of ceremonies. Mr. Kieran.
I think Joe Louis won in 8 rounds.
Sure he did.
Yeah, with Braddock in
Yeah,
Chicago.
1937. And finally, in 11 rounds. What one won the world championship by knockout in 11 rounds?
I may be wrong, but I think it's...
Do you
want
have
to
it,
call
Mr. Farley?
It was Lewis and Pastor, wasn't it?
No, I don't think
That wasn't a championship
so.
fight.
It wasn't a championship fight.
Maybe-
Mr. Levant.
I'm going to guess. I think it was Max Baer and Carnera.
Very good guess.
I thought it was a
absolutely
12th
right.
round.
In 1934, 3 out of 3. The boys are better this evening than they've ever have been before. The next question from D. Richards of Washington, D.C. is about postage stamps. A portrait of each of the following people is to appear on a forthcoming postage stamp. For what is each to be honored? What is each of these persons to be honored for? Now, the first is Gilbert Charles Stewart, 1755 to 1828. What did Gilbert Charles Stewart did? Mr. Farley, if you want to answer, it's all right with me. All right. He cedes to Mr. Kieran.
He was a famous portrait painter. He painted the portrait of Washington.
Yes.
That's been copied all over the country.
Yes, a very, very famous portrait of George Washington. Now, another postage stamp shortly to appear is going to have on its face Ethelbert W. Nevin. Ethelbert W. Nevin. What's he going to be honored for? Mr. Adams.
Probably for Narcissus.
For what?
For writing Narcissus.
What is Narcissus?
That's very well known.
It's a
That's
perfume, isn't it?
composition by Ethelbert Nevin, a composer.
You're telling it all back to me. That's quite right. And is there any more famous composition he's known for? Mr. Levant.
The Rosary.
Yes, the Rosary and Mighty Like a Rose, too, I think. Quite
Well,
right.
that brings back bad memories. That's Harpo Marx again.
Mighty Like a Rose?
Yeah, forever.
Erase him from your mind, Mr. Kieran. And another postage stamp is shortly going to appear, which will bear the visage of Crawford W. Long. Crawford W. Long. For what would he be famous? Why do we honor him? Crawford W. Long. Have to get all on this, gentlemen. 1815 to 1878. Like to have a guess. Any guesses will be welcome.
Must have been a deserving Democrat.
He was a famous American. He's one of the...
Mr. Farley, were you going to tell us anything about him?
He's a doctor, wasn't he?
He was, yes. I bet you've known these things all along and just won't tell me.
He was one of the doctors from Georgia, I think.
Yes, he was. What did he do? That's good enough. Do you remember what he was famous for?
He was the first one to use anesthesia?
Of course he was. That's exactly right, Mr. Farley. First one to use anesthesia. Mr. Farley, the only one to know that. Mr. Farley, who selects the faces that appear on the stamps? Might we know about that, or is it a government secret?
No, are you talking about this particular series?
Yes, or any series.
Well, the request, in this particular case, a request is, there was a great demand for what was known as the Great American Series.
Yes.
So we decided on a series of 35 stamps
Yeah.
in 7 different groups, 5 different names in the 7 groups, 35.
Well,
that's approved by the Office of the Third Assistant, brought up to for me for final approval. And to be very frank with you, the President always takes a great interest in it because he's been a very active stamp collector all his life, and his advice is always sought before we make a final decision.
Yes, well, that's very interesting. We're very grateful for that information. I think many Americans have wanted to know how these particular faces appeared on the stamps that we use. Thank you very much, Mr. Farley. Here's a question about politics. I'm going to ask you, or rather, Mr. M. Johnson of Los Angeles, California, is going to ask you to identify the dark horse who gained the presidential nomination in the convention at which the following were favorites. Now, in the case of the convention in which McAdoo and Palmer were favorites, what dark horse? Mr. Farley.
Why, John W. Davis.
Now, wait a minute. That was in 1920. McAdoo and Palmer.
Oh, that was James M. Cox.
Yes, James M. Cox. That's quite right, Mr. Farley.
San Francisco.
And now, in the case of Bryan and Hearst, they were the favorites at a convention, and who got the nomination in their party? Remember that? It's 19th, Mr. Farley.
That was Judge Parker.
Judge Parker, Alden B. Parker. Very good memory, Mr. Farley, despite your modesty. Johnson, Loudon, and Wood were favorites, and who went Mr. Farley against?
Harding?
Harding, yes. What convention was
That was the Chicago Convention, 1920.
In 1920, yes. Let's see. We did get, with Alton B., I got 2 Democrats and 1 Republican on that question. That all right, Mr. Farley? We tried
I think
to
it's all right. That's a good percentage.
That's a good percentage. We keep it up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make which I think I have never announced before. And that is that the experts this evening have answered every single question correctly with not a single misstep. I congratulate you all, and I congratulate myself on being able to put you through your paces so prettily. Very good. Now, Mr. Cross, if you'll wipe the crumbs from your mouth and take the floor, after which I'll tell you about next week's guest.
Thank you, Mr. Fadiman. There's a big white cake here in the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria, and pretty soon we may hear everyone chiming in with happy birthday to you. During this first year of Canada Dry's sponsorship of Information Please, nearly everyone has remarked that it was a happy coincidence that these 2 sparkling companions got together. We sincerely hope that you will continue to find Information Please an enjoyable part of your radio entertainment. And we hope, too, that you will continue to express your pleasure by asking for Canada Dry sparkling water, ginger ale, and all of our other many fine beverages.
Canada Dry's thanks go to you, Mr. Farley, for coming down this evening and joining our birthday party. Now, next week, Mr. Kieran and Mr. Adams will give us of their best, and a very good best it is. And as our 2 guest experts, we will have, by popular request, first, a repeat appearance by Mr. Mo Berg, who catches for the Boston Red Sox and swallows encyclopedias as a sideline. The second guest will be the American humorist, playwright, and screenwriter, J.P. McAvoy. To our listeners, we say, please send your questions along. If you have a stumper to stump our board of experts, let's have it. There are $5 in it for you if we use your question. And if your question stumps the experts, you get another $10, plus a complete set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. So you can win this new prize in addition to $15. Send letters with questions and correct answers to Information Please, 1 Pershing Square, New York City.
Remember, Canada Dry ginger ale and sparkling water are on sale in convenient sizes at your favorite neighborhood stores. The large family size sells for only 15 cents. The medium size, 12 ounces, 3 for 25 cents. This is Milton Cross saying good night for Canada Dry until next week at this same time.